Hey, have you always wanted to know what the Ark of the Covenant is? And some things and facts and stuff about the Ark of the Covenant. So, would you join me next for Straight Talking Coffee? And we are going to talk straight about what this thing is. Oh my goodness, everybody is talking about the Ark of the Covenant. Is your church? Do you want to know what this is? Everybody has searched for it. It is lost somewhere. And so we're going to talk about what the Ark of the Covenant actually is and why it's such a big deal and why is everybody wanting to find it, even the Jewish people. So let's dive into it. So I want to read to you something. Well, let's just kind of go first to see what is the Ark of the Covenant. Well, Moses was instructed to build an Ark of the Covenant, which is actually called the mercy seat. A lot of people in Samuel, and if you read in different books, especially in Leviticus and Exodus and Deuteronomy and those books where the rules, regulations, and how to build the tabernacle and how to build the Ark of the Covenant. Now put in your mind heaven on earth, as it is in heaven, so shall it be on earth. So you have to know that God lives in a temple, a throne room. He has a throne room, and there's a huge temple because he described where would he get the measurements for everything and what would the throne look like. Well, it describes what the throne looks like, and there's angels flying all around in the throne room. Ezekiel describes it, and John the Revelator, he describes it there. It's a revelation of Jesus Christ in Revelation, and he describes all of that. So we have some clues of what everything is. And you can bet your bottom dollar that we are a mirrored reflection, a very lost mirrored reflection of what heaven is. Because God designed the Garden of Eden as what it looks like in heaven. And then it had no, and the only reason why I'm telling you this background is because you need to understand it was perfection. And you need to know that when God designs stuff, he makes it look like his home. And his home is in heaven. And so when you kind of think along those lines, you kind of picture um, what what is reality and what is really not um, reality. So the things that we see and know and smell and hear down here on earth is so much bigger and it's purer than it is it is in heaven. So what I want to do is I want to give you some facts about the Ark of the Covenant. Nobody knows where it's at. We're going to kind of go over that a little bit now later. But this is what the Ark of the Covenant was. It is a box that contained a covenant in it that God had made with the Israeli people, the Jewish people, when he brought them out of Egypt. He put that covenant in this box so that they would, it's a done deal. It never ends. It's in this box. And this is a covenant that they can go by. He also commanded them to put a jar of manna in because that was miraculously given to them for food, for stuff, sustenance to keep them going and alive. It appeared every single day, and they could only get enough for that day. And if they got anything else more than they were supposed to for each family, God knew it, and it rotted by the end of the day. So they only got what they needed anyway to survive on. Also, there's Aaron's staff that's in there, and it budded miraculously. It's a dead staff. I mean, you know that when you cut a tree branch off of a tree, it dies. But for some reason, this one was alive because God made it that way. And so I can't imagine if you open up the Ark of the Covenant, I bet you would still see flowers growing on Aaron's staff. I just, I believe that because that's why it was put in there. So let's talk about this. What was the ark? Well, this was the ark. It was 3.75 feet long. It was 2.25 feet wide, and it was 2.25 feet high. The Ten Commandments are in it. Aaron's budding rod is in it, and a jar of manna. Manna. It is made of acacia wood. It's overlaid inside and out with pure gold. The cherubims that sit on the top of it are gold. They're pure gold. It's called the mercy seat. The top has cherubims, and their wings stretched out like this, and they covered. Um, my husband has an opinion on that because he feels like, or it, what it sounds like is when God came down after the tabernacle was all laid out, and God's presence himself came down and sat and resided on that ark and in that ark. So I believe that that was his throne, and it was made out of gold because gold is the purest and most sought after thing in the world. So why wouldn't he make his throne out of that? And it does say in the Bible that the throne, his throne is blue in heaven, but it has gold flickers if you go look at the stone that it's made out of. And I'm going to give that to you so that maybe you'll go look up and try to figure out what it is and look up the stone on Google and see what that actually looks like, because it does look like it has gold weaved through it. So that's interesting to me. Um, it has carrying poles because once God himself came on that ark and his spirit resided, or God himself resided in that ark, it was just overtaken. And so the power of God was upon that ark, and they had to carry it by poles because if people touched it, they would die. And so it's interesting, and even come in the room of the Holy of Holies, and you didn't have a pure heart and you came before God, you died, and you had to have a rope around you so that if that happened, they could pull you out because only one priest was allowed to go in a year. And can you imagine that? And now we're all allowed to go in and talk to God anytime, any day, um, about any circumstances. Um, totally, we can walk in there and be confident and go before God Himself and ask and seek and worship Him and thank Him for the things that He's done for us. So that is an awesome thing to even think about. But these poles carried this ark around, and we're going to talk about later. We're going to talk about later what happened when they marched and did stuff. Did when they marched around Jericho with the ark and the Jordan. And so let's get back into its home was the tabernacle, and then it went to Solomon's temple. So um at first, when they were in a desert, God told them to build a tabernacle, and it had specific measurements, it had specific places inside, it had furniture, um it had a holy of holies, and the curtain was absolutely so thick and there was no opening in the curtain. So a lot of people, and even my husband, often wonders, how do people get through there? And I think when once a year, when they are supposed to go do that, when they're supposed to enter the Holy of Holies, that they could actually pass through the curtain. They didn't have to go and on the outside or the inside, but God actually allowed them to pass through miraculously to come and talk with Him about the nation, and for God to give them information about what he expected the next year or wanted them to do the next year. So um, that is where that happened. And then Solomon built a temple. It wasn't David. David wanted to, but because David was a man of war and killed a lot of people in war and stuff, God said no, because your hands are you know there's a lot of blood that's on your hands. So he Solomon was in charge. David laid out all the plans, and Solomon built the temple. It was very grand. It was lined in gold. It had palm trees of gold on the sides, and you can look at YouTube and find Solomon's temple and what it looked like. And then there was also Jesus's temple when he was alive. There was a temple. But the funny thing is about that, there was no Ark of the Covenant because it had been captured by Nebuchadnezzar. Well, it hadn't been captured by Nebuchadnezzar, but when Nebuchadnezzar went in and destroyed Jerusalem and captured everyone, that was the last time that they saw the Ark of the Covenant um, be anywhere to be found. So nobody knows what happened to it. They don't know. There's a lot of speculation about that. So it vanished, like I just said, when King Nebuchadnezzar raided, and it's still unknown where it is today. So therefore, in Jesus's time, there was not an ark. Um, the ark was designed by God Himself. The tabernacle was designed, his home that he wanted the people to build him so that he could be among the people, was basically a very fancy tent. And it was a tabernacle, and it's amazing. I hope when I go to Israel in November that we go to Shiloh and we're able to see the tabernacle. I'm really super excited about that, and I don't think I've talked about much about that, but that is an interesting story in itself of me being able to go to Israel. I'm going in November the 1st through the 10th. Unless a big war breaks out over there and we are not allowed to go, then I am going to be going to Israel for 10 days. And it's a miracle that I get to do this, and it's an amazing story. A few months ago, a friend of mine, she sent me a message and said, Tracy, would you like to go to Israel? And I'm like, of course, I would like to go to Israel. Who wouldn't want to go to Israel? But going to Israel is very expensive. And so she's like, I didn't ask you if you could afford it. I didn't say anything about that. She just said, I'm just asking you if you would go with me to Israel. I would like to go to Israel one more time. She's an older generation, and she would like to go see the Holy Land one more, another time. And so she asked me if I would go, and she has paid my way to go to Israel, and my passport, and I just need my spending money, and I am headed to Israel. And what a blessing. But also, I do feel like that God doesn't do that on a big whim. He also has, I feel like, an assignment or something that I'm supposed to see, or a message, or something that I'm supposed to do. God just doesn't do those kind of things and allow those kind of things to happen to a person without um, an assignment of some kind. So I'm really interested and really looking forward to seeing all that God has for me in Israel. So that being said, that's where everything ended up. Was the Ark of the Covenant was taken. We don't know. They speculate that some priest hid the Ark of the Covenant in a cavern, or some kind of cavern down underneath the Temple Mount. Is, a lot of people say that. There is also a gentleman that has said that it was under Jeremiah's grotto, and I can't remember his name, but I will remember it here in a minute. God will bring it to me. But he's the one that also discovered Noah's Ark. Um, and very interesting. Very interesting story that he has. And I will have to remember his name and I will tell you to look up the story. But it is wonderful. And I'm sure if you know where it's at, you can, who it is, and you know that, then you can put it in the comments so everybody can go learn about it. But the ark is a very unique form thing, uh, making of it. I've also heard that some people in Texas got together and made the ark just this a new ark, because it's no the old one is nowhere to be found. And so I've also seen what the new Ark of the Covenant, and they've sent it to Jerusalem, what it looks like, and it's made exactly like the old one, just it looks different. So this may be the thing that will go into the next temple that is supposed to be built. And it's not Ezekiel's temple, but it would be the Antichrist's temple. And we are going to talk about the Antichrist and who he is next episode. So it was carried by God's people around to different places. It went before them in battle. In the Battle of Jericho, the Ark of the Covenant, Joshua was told to march 7 times around the city. We all know that story. And the Ark of the Covenant, it was to go before anything else, which is the presence of God. The presence of God actually rested on the ark and in the ark. And that is why it was so dangerous to um, touch the Ark of the Covenant. If you can imagine what Moses saw in a burning bush, and when he went up to Mount Sinai, and God came down as a big, huge storm, and he covered the mountain, and when he spoke, lightning came out. I'm sure that's what they saw at the bottom of the mountain, and it scared them. And he warned people. The stories, if you go back and read the stories, do not touch this mountain, or you will surely die. And the power of God is so amazing. I mean, it can make mountains shake. And I can't imagine what the ground that Moses walked on. He had to take his shoes off because he was walking on holy ground. And I can't imagine what that ground actually felt like and what went and up through him, just the very fibers of his being, probably every cell shook. John Paul Jackson talks about that when he got the opportunity to go into the throne room before he passed away. And I don't know how many years that was or whatever, but he has a book that I read all the time, um, talking about 7 days behind the veil. And it's a it's an awesome book, but he was just like, God's presence when you're before him, it's like your very cells are ignited, and it's just like he can see straight through you and in you, and knows every thought, everything, every fiber of your being. He knows it, and it'll bring you to your knees. So I think that that in itself, to have and witness that presence, and no wonder there was a veil between the people and a tabernacle. Um, and then there was a pillar of fire by night to keep everybody warm. Can you imagine a pillar of fire in a humongous camp of thousands of people, but it kept every single person warm, and then a cloud by the day to keep everybody cool. I bet you God's air conditioner was wonderful, because it probably, this tent didn't like it too cold and this tent didn't, and he just let it cool them during the day so that they wouldn't die of of dehydration and all of that. But can you imagine seeing that every day where the fire turned into a cloud and then the cloud turned into a fire by night? And it was just amazing to know that something alive and breathing was in that tent. God is um the giver of breath and life, and he can do anything. So I sit and I think about all of these things and what they're hunting for and how some of the things they're coming to know, like King David's palace, they've dug that up and they've dug walkways to where they used to go up to the temple, the stairs and everything. You can walk that. And to me, that is amazing. And it's proving that the Bible is actually a real book of history as well as the history of God. So, how do you know somebody? You read an autobiography about them, and that's what this is. And then it's a love letter to each one of us to give us information and reveal mysteries. Mysteries. Let's talk about that. Hey, we did a short, and we're gonna upload a video of everybody that is speaking at the conference, and hopefully the next 3 weeks we will get each one of them in here and do an interview with them, because I think you need to know who they are and a little bit about them so that you will understand the conference and know where our hearts are at. But we are doing a women's conference and it's called The Mysteries of the Kingdom, Mark 4:11. So go read what that is. We're all entitled to know and gain wisdom from the kingdom, and we should all strive to want to understand those mysteries. So would you please join us August 28th and 29th? And um, food is going to be starting to be served at 5 o'clock on Friday night. We're gonna have soup and salad. Saturday it starts at 8 with breakfast, and then speaking starts at 9. So come join us. Come on the adventures of finding the mysteries of the kingdom. So I wanted to get a little plug in of that. There are so many stories, and in Samuel chapter 6, it talks about how um, the ark of God was taken to different towns. And it's funny, when I was reading this in chapter 6 and chapter 7, it talks about the ark. And when I was reading about this, how powerful this ark was, because people thought, oh, we're going to steal the power of God from the Israelites. We're going to steal that. We're going to take the Ark of the Covenant and we're going to move it to our town. And then their God is going to show up and we're going to get as strong as they are. And God's going to do these things for us and we're going to put him underneath our God. So they went to the first town, and the first town talks about how they set the Ark of the Covenant in with Dagon, which is a god that they worshipped in that land. And you could read this in First Samuel 6, 5, 6, and 7 talks about a lot about these stories, and how the next day after the ark was put in, their God was knocked down flat on its face, bowing to the Ark of the Covenant, which I think that's so awesome. Only God would do that. And then they picked it up and they put it back up. And then the next day they came in and it was absolutely broken into pieces. I think that is absolutely awesome. That's our God. And then it was taken around every single battle. And there was a time when God said, okay, I'm going to take you into the promised land. And the ark, which has the presence of God in that ark, and it's carried around, and the priest had to go first in order for the Jordan River to part and let them go into the promised land. And on the other side was Jericho. And then Jericho, they marched around with the ark at the front of the line. That was the first thing that went around Jericho, and they had to march 7 times with that ark. So, 7 days and 7 times. And that is God's number. 7 is complete. He created the earth and rested on the seventh day. So that is heaven's number. And So when you think about those kind of things, it's so interesting. Do we know where the Ark of the Covenant is today? No, we do not. The third temple, we'll talk about that just a little bit. The third temple. So you have Solomon's temple, then you have the temple that Jesus walked in, and then you'll have the temple that is going to go through the tribulation period that the Israelites or Israel has prepared right now. They have walls built. So I have heard, I haven't been over there to see all this, but they also have all the furniture and one of the pieces, the menorah, one of the pieces is displayed in um, Israel, and people can see it, and it's in a very bulletproof glass case that sits in the middle of the town. I've seen that on TV and YouTube, and you can too. But it is solid gold, millions and millions of dollars that went into making that um, piece of furniture, and everything else is ready to go. They have uh, the altar of incense, they have the showbread table, they have everything, bronze laver, they have everything all ready to go, the pieces, and even the priest's garments and the ephod that it holds the um, rocks, the different kinds of birthstones, as you would say, into the ephod that represent each tribe of Israel. Now, that being said, a lot of people that um, are into crystals and all of that, I have been told that the crystals protected the priests because they put them in the ephod. That is not true. The word of God doesn't say that those rocks protected them. It says that it represented each tribe, each stone represented each tribe. There was no power. Now there was a rocks of, well, I don't know if they were just rocks, but they look like rocks from what I've seen of pictures of what they used to be, the Uman and the Thummim. But that God can do anything He wants to. Um, but there were the Uman and the Thummim. Now, only priests got information from those. It wasn't everybody. It was only entrusted to a priest that asked the questions and that got the answers. And like I said, only one person went in each year to, and they had to be so pure and their heart had to be so right with God to go in and talk with God and see what his plans were for Israel, his plans, what he wanted to accomplish and what he wanted to do for the next year. And prophetic words came out of that revelation. God gave the priest revelation. So it's a very interesting subject to study and talk about amongst your amongst friends and churches. It's just very, it's a very cool thing. But the third temple is going to be built, and I'm not sure. A lot of people say that the priests, the the Sanhedrin that is in charge of all that over there in Israel, that they know exactly where the Ark of the Covenant is at, but they're not bringing it out until the temple is rebuilt, and then they're going to bring it out. But maybe this ark that was the special ark that was absolutely built for them, that is in pure gold, that came from our country, I think from Texas is where it came from. Um, but that was sent over there, and maybe that is the ark that's going to stand, because God didn't tell them to build it, He told the Israelites to build it. So maybe that is the ark, because Jesus was the Messiah and the Antichrist that's coming is not the Messiah. And so um maybe that's what will sit in the temple and the Antichrist will sit on. We have no idea, and we won't be here as Christians. I believe, my opinion is that the rapture will come before the temple is built, and or we could see signs of it and then be taken up. I don't know how it's going to happen, but God does, and we're going to watch it probably take place. So I want to just pray with you and encourage you to go read stories about, because it tells you these stories that you're going to read about the power of God and who He was in the Old Testament is going to tell you so many things about Him, and that His Spirit lives in us. Now we are the tabernacle, and we don't need that tent anymore, that tabernacle tent, because He lives inside of us. So make sure your house is clean when you go to meet with Him. Make sure that you walk in as pure as possible to meet with Him. Confess your sin each day. Um, I just want to encourage you to do what the priest, because we're considered um, sisters and brothers and priests of God, and we should know a lot of things about who God is. And this is one place that you can find out who He is. He can turn into he can make a pillar of fire happen and a pillar of smoke to protect us. He can do anything. So I do want to encourage you to do that and get really serious about your walk with the Lord, because we might have to answer for that. You didn't come into me. You didn't come into the place where I meet with you. You didn't come in with a pure heart and ask for forgiveness. And so be very mindful of your space with God. So I hope that this brought some clarity. And there's a lot of people that are really into finding the ark and wanting to be that person that finds the ark, or that person, and maybe we'll get to see it. Maybe we'll get to see it. I know with technology, people are going to be able to see the two witnesses live every single day. And we're going to talk about all of that next Straight Talking Coffee. So the next Straight Talking Coffee, we were going to talk about the Antichrist and who he is and what he looks like, and not what he looks like, but maybe his mannerisms and things like that. So join me next time for Straight Tongue Coffee. Let me pray with you. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Lord, give us an unction to understand all the things, the mysteries of your word and the mysteries of um, this Ark of the Covenant. It's an amazing thing, and you are an amazing God. And I'm so thankful for everything that you have brought to light to us in your word. And it's so interesting to know about all of these things, but it's so awesome that we don't need to go talk to you through an ark anymore, or be in the presence in a temple, because we are the temple. And I thank you for that. And I thank you that you live and you speak with us as we go about our daily business every single day, to tell us where to go, what to do, look for this. And I thank you for that. And I just pray a special blessing on everyone that is watching here today. May the Lord give you the desire to know him and to know who he is and know the mysteries of the kingdom. We thank you, Lord, for everything. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, have a great day. We'll see you next time with Straight Talking Coffee.